بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Today we're looking at the chapter باب ما جاء في منكر القدر. ما جاء في منكر القدر. What is reported about the deniers of the preordainment? Preordainment or qadr, Allah's decree. So here we benefit that there are people and groups in the past who denied Allah's preordainment, Allah's qada and qadar. And they believed either that there isn't such a thing as qadar and qada, or that there is qadar and qada, but we as human beings, we don't have much of a choice in that which occurs to us. It means we are compelled to do that which we do. So here Shaykh al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he says deniers, munkirin, essentially means those people who are in denial, they reject. And the word qadar, when we use it, what is intended by it is the preordainment of Allah, the mighty and the sublime, for the entire existence, means the entire universe. It is a sealed secret. No one knows except Allah, or whom He wills among His creation. So here we first need to begin with what is qadar and what's qada, if there's a difference between them or not. So when it comes to the meaning of the word qada, al-qada, then linguistically it carries something like 6 different meanings, depending on the context. At least 6 different meanings. So some of those meanings can mean an amr, a command. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ. Allah says that your Lord has commanded that you don't worship anyone except for Him. So in this context, qada doesn't mean the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the legislated sense, although it carries some of that meaning, but rather command. So the word qada can carry more than one meaning. Similarly, the word al-qadar, sometimes it's used to mean measurement, taqdeer. Other times it could be used to refer to ability, ta'a or taqa. Allah says in the Quran, for example, وَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ, as for mankind, if we restrict their provision, فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ. فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ. Allah means here that He restricted His provisions, and He's not capable of having more provisions. لِيُنْفِقُ ذُو سَعَةٍ عَلَى سَعَةٍ. Another ayah resembles this, that someone gives in accordance to that which he has. وَمَنْ يُقْتِرْ, whoever has limited amounts like this. So qadar in this angle can mean ability, or not inability to do something. But linguistically, when you take these 2 definitions, you see they have multiple meanings, but legislatively they have one and similar meaning. So while they differ linguistically, qadar and qada, legislatively they carry the same meaning. And the ulama differ then, what is qadar and qada? Are they different? Are they the same? Many opinions, none of them really have strong, clear proof to differentiate between the qada and qadar. So when we talk about it from a technical angle, shar'i meaning, qadar and qada are the same. So the same thing. Shaykh Ibn Hassan, for example, rahimahullah, he says if one word is present and versus the other, they carry the same meaning. It's very important because the scholars differed. Some of them, they said it means when something hasn't occurred, when the other one means when something has then occurred. And these type of definitions were offered, but the proofs are not clear. So the conclusion is they carry the same meaning. What is the legislative meaning then? When we talk about qadar, we're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree. So here, هو تقدير الله على الشيء أو تعالى على الأشياء في القدم. Qadar and qada then legislatively mean Allah's decree in relation to the creation in eternity. Means prior to the creation, along with His knowledge subhanahu wa ta'ala, but will occur in every time. So first it deals with Allah's decree of the things that will occur fil qidam, means in the past. And we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed things 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and earth. And alongside that with His knowledge subhanahu wa ta'ala what will occur in every time, معلومة عنده, and it's well known according to him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was never ignorant of anything. It's very important. For the certain groups, they claim that Allah doesn't have knowledge of what will occur until after it occurs. A'yadhu billah. It's as if we're talking about mankind. They claim that Allah doesn't know what will happen until after it happens. It's totally false. We say, brother, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knowledge of everything that will occur in His detail, at all cases, all times. وَعَلَى صِفَاتِ مَخْصُوصًا. He also has knowledge, not only what will occur, but the mannerisms and the specifications of its occurrence. And added to this, He wrote it down, subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, due to His will and want. And Allah, He has a will. And all of this occurs according to His ability and His will, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is like a comprehensive combination of all the different elements of qadr and qada, which Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah Ibn Qayyim, they mention when discussing the word qadr. So what we take from this qadr and qada legislatively, same meaning. And what we talk about here, we're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree in relation to His creation. It's a secret belonging to Him. No one knows it except for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives them some knowledge of it. For example, the prophets and messengers were told about something of the qadr in relation to what will happen in the previous, or happen in the previous nation, what will happen in the future. Alamat as-sa'a. These are certain things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us indications of the unseen. However, besides that, Allah only knows, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we benefit from this angle, what the Shaykh is mentioning, that's a secret that we shouldn't be investigating, nor trying very hard to try to uncover Allah's secret. For mankind is not able to understand and fully comprehend the nature and the detail of qadr. As Shaykh Muhammad, he mentions elsewhere, some people, they tried and they fell into absolute confusion. Absolute confusion. Because with all of this detailed knowledge to reflect and ponder, mankind, our capacity of knowledge is limited. We have very little knowledge. And if we try to encompass and try to understand all of that which Allah decreed, and how the possibilities of what He decreed, and the outcomes of what He decreed, and what He did not decree, we will not be able to comprehend it fully. And our minds are limited. So it's very important that we leave it this way. There are people who, they investigate in the issue of qadr, and they left out of the religion. The only conclusion they got out of their deep investigation of qadr was disbelief or doubt. They didn't come with strength in yaqeen and iman. It's very important. We didn't find groups who investigated qadr, tried to comprehend it, tried to understand it, question Allah and challenge His wisdom, except they came out with doubt or disbelief. They didn't come with strong iman. And this is important because the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something easy to understand, but we need to be careful of trying to investigate beyond our bounds. For those reasons, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he used to say, or it's ascribed to him that he said, Al-Qadr Qudratul Rahman. Al-Qadr Qudratul Rahman. The qadr is the capability of Allah and the ability of Ar-Rahman. So everything that you can imagine here in relation to recording of knowledge and knowledge of what will occur and what did not occur, what's impossible to occur, all of that, ala kulli shayin qadir. So very important that we benefit from this from the get-go. He says, then some among the people of knowledge, have said Al-Qadr is Allah's secret regarding His creation, and we do not know it until it occurs, whether good or bad. And this means in the angle of human beings, we don't know what Allah decreed until after it occurs. Prior to that, we don't know. So for example, Allah decreed for us to be sick. We would not know that until after we became sick. Someone cannot say, I knew I was going to become sick. You have signs that perhaps you're going to feel sick, but even then you don't know. Because it may just go away. And the idea behind this is, in the angle of mankind, we don't know Allah's decree until after it occurs. Therefore, investigating and trying to find out what Allah decreed is futile. Because you will never truly be able to know until after it occurs. Because then you're speaking about Allah without knowledge. Some may say Allah didn't decree this, Allah decreed that. Are you speaking about Allah with knowledge which you don't have, or with that with knowledge? And we see people today, when they think about qadr and they speak about it, they really are forgetting some of the basic principles. Therefore, we have two things involved in qadr. First, at-taqdeer, the very thing which Allah is willing. Whatever Allah is willing, this is called at-taqdeer, that very action or very thing that Allah wants to decree. Then you have the muqaddar, the one who decrees it, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He wills. And we covered in the previous chapter, when something happens which we are not pleased with, what do we say? قَدَرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. So here we benefit to combine the two. So at-taqdeer comes along with action and precedes it. What comes with action is that by which the action occurs, and that which precedes it with Allah, the Mighty, the Sublime, has preordained in eternity. For instance, the creation of a fetus in the mother's womb has preceding knowledge-related taqdeer 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and earth. It also has taqdeer related to the creation and the formation. This is that by which the action occurs. That is to say, Allah is willing this thing during its creation. So the ulama, when they talk about the taqdeer, therefore there are different types. For example, the taqdeer azali, in this case 50,000 years Allah decreed everything. And then for example, Laylatul Qadr, that which is decreed for the Sanawi. And then there's the, right, what was decreed for our provisions within our room, etc. So different, so there's no contradiction. In fact, that if something was decreed 50,000 years and that happened, and Allah then also decreed that it's going to be formed, the creation, in the, for example, the womb, in the fetus in the womb of the mother. There's no contradiction, different types of taqdeer. So here, what's the belief of qadr? It's connected to Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is also connected to Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat, because it's from the attributes of perfection belonging to Allah. From Rububiyyah, it has to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, His creation, His knowledge, His ability. All those are Rububiyyah. Allah is the Mudabbir, the Khaliq. Right? And here we're talking about creation. And then Asma' wa Sifat, because perfection. Allah has the names Al-Alim, Al-Qadir, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir, all these names connected to His decree as well. So in relation to the issue of Qadr then, people fell into different groups. Naturally, people that came and they deviated. And deviation occurs due to people deviating themselves from the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decreed guidance and misguidance. But certain people that misguide themselves were not taking the correct path. فَلَمَّا زَاغُوا أَزَاغَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُمْ. When they deviated, Allah deviated their hearts. So from those groups that deviated are the Jabariyya al-Jahmiyya. Or in English, the Jabarites, Jahmites. So they combine between Jabariyya and Jahmiyya. But here we're just calling them Jabariyya. This group, they affirmed the pre-adornment of Allah the Exalted, but went to extremes in affirming it. So this group, Al-Jabariyya, we mentioned their names before in different lessons, as well as different brothers. They're people who affirmed Allah's decree, but they went to extreme. So much so that they denied the servant his choice and ability. They said the servant has no choice. He has no mashiyah. No ikhtiyar. He can't choose anything. And they view that the servant has no choice or ability in what he does or leaves off. So his eating, drinking, sleeping, wakefulness, obedience, disobedience, all of this is without choice or ability. And this is from the utmost of misguidance. The Jabariyya, from the utmost of misguidance. So there's no difference according to them between someone descending from the rooftop through the staircase willingly and when he's thrown off the rooftop unwillingly. It's all the same. Whether he falls off by himself or someone pushes him, it's all the same. Subhanallah. And here we benefit, the Shaykh mentions also in Sharh Thalath al-Usul, that this in reality is something every mankind, every human being can sense themselves. When they do something out of their own will or something when it's out of their control. Example, falling. When you fall, as much as you try to resist the fall, you're still falling. You know this. You're trying to stop the fall, but you're falling. It's out of your hands. At the same time, when you willfully fall, you choose to fall down, then you know this. Same with eating, drinking. You know when you're eating and drinking, there is nobody who's forcing you. So he says then it's something very clear that everyone has a will. We sense it in our own selves. But then this group came and said, reality, Allah decreed everything. And His decree then is binding. Therefore we have no choice. Whatever we do, of good or bad, we have no choice. Therefore, really you have no accountability either. And this is misguidance of the utmost misguidance. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has affirmed from the basics of qadr that we have a will. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. And you don't will unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. Our will is connected to Allah's will. But we have a will. And we see this every day. We chose to come to the lesson. After the lesson finishes, we choose our route back home. All of these things you're choosing. No one is compelling you. As for them, they came with this misguidance. In reality, it's only enabling them to do sin and transgression. For what in reality does Jabariyya lead to? To sin. Because you absolved all responsibility now. So what are you going to do? Not more salawat. No, you're going to do haram and say, I've been forced to. And this is exactly where you see where these people they're coming going with. Had this been anything of correctness, why does it lead you to false, evil and sin and transgression? Why does it lead you to salawat and reading Quran and more? It's leading you to sin. The opposite is the other group, Al-Qadariyah, or the Qadarites, Al-Mu'taziliyah, or Mu'tazilites. So they're the exact opposite on the spectrum. One is on one side, the other one's on the other side. And they affirm the servant's will and ability in his actions, but went to extremes regarding that, so much so that they rejected the fact that Allah the Exalted has His will regarding the servant's action or creation. So they affirm mankind has a will and choice, but they denied Allah's ability to have control over the universe, that He subhanahu wa ta'ala has a will, and that His will supersedes ours. They denied that. In fact, the Shaykh said they went so far to even suggest that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not know what the creation does till after it occurs. And some said He doesn't have knowledge of it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is ignorant of what a human being will do. Rather, a human being has full reign over his choices and knowledge of what he wishes to do. And this is extremism, again, a different type of extremism. Because here, essentially, they affirm the Mashiach for themselves, denied that for Allah. Forgetting that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, we see it more clearly. And then the will of a human being. For none of us is in control of the sun and earth and moon. And we see many occurrences in the universe can only dictate and necessitate that there has to be decree. Someone dying at a young age, another one living a long age. Someone studying for one test, failing, and studying the exact same way, the same test, and passing. No understanding behind that, except that it has to be beyond us. If we have full reign of our own control, or control over our own destiny and ability, we would not have that outcome. An example for those who are into farming, when they irrigate their vegetation, same amount of soil and water produces different amounts of fruit. So it has to be certain things that are beyond our bounds. And mankind, many things are outside of our bounds already. The fact that we cannot fly, we cannot have certain form Allah didn't create us in, and being born we already realize that. A lot of the stuff, even with this, we take for granted. Allah created us, وَيَخْتَارُ, and He chose. مَا كَانَ لَهُمْ خِيَرًا. We didn't have any choice. So if we accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some of them, they don't want to call it Allah, they will call it coincidence, probability, all of this. It's another type of deity to them. But call it whatever you want to call it. If we accept those features, how that cannot be possible? Nor logical. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can also control or has destined certain actions to happen and destine our lives. It's not far-fetched. Certain things we already accept that. But you see, this is extremism. In reality, these people have fallen far from the straight path. And they're both in the title, or both being addressed in this chapter. In the first group, the Shaykh says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu khaliqu kulli shay. So this group tries to use this evidence. The other group tries to use another evidence. Each of them tries to make their claim. All of that is wrong. And not to go into too much detail because the chapter is very lengthy, we see each of them is coming with extremism. So in reality, none of them are correct. The Sirat al-Mustaqim to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is that we affirm a will for mankind and creation, but we don't say our will is independent. Rather, our will is dependent on Allah's will. And we also don't deny the fact that people have the choice to do good and bad, but they'll be held accountable. And decree exists. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed everything. 50,000 years before, He created the heavens and earth, as it comes in the hadith in Muslim. So the chapter is really dealing with both parties. And here Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen goes in great length in detailing the different ways in which they argued and what angles they came with and how to refute them, in order to save us some time, but also not to confuse many of us. If someone refers back to this, he takes our argument with them. And he's not the first to do this. Some of the ulama, they produced munadarat, or arguments or dialogue between one another. Ibn Qayyim al-Shifaa al-Alil, he has, for example, an argument between the Qadari and a Sunni. The Qadari says this, the Sunni says that. The Qadari says this, Sunni replies this. So then showing it then, the Qadari is failed. He ends up in the corner with defeat. And because then his arguments are based on ignorance, but also desires. Hawa. So when they follow the hawa, they end up somewhere else. So this kind of argumentation the ulama have done, and many books have been authored in dispelling the doubts of those people. Ta'iyya fil Qadar, for example, Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah and others, they have these kind of books. So Shaykh, he does this back and forth, but what we do need to know, both parties are wrong. The truth is in the middle. And we affirm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given mankind the ability, the choice to do good or to do evil. At the same time, He's decreed There is no contradiction between both. So what occurs is by the decree of Allah. We can't escape the decree. The Shaykh mentions a nice benefit here in relation to establishing this point, because some people, they essentially think that they can escape the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, the Shaykh asks a question on page 422. He says, does belief in Qadr negate what is known imperatively that an individual acts based on his own choice? So this belief in Qadr deny the fact that we have our own ability to choose actions. He says it does not contradict. Does not contradict it, because what the individual does out of his own choice is also part of Allah's preordainment. As the leader of the Muslims, Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said, when he set out for Syria and they said to him, there is an epidemic or plague in Syria destroying lives. So he gathered the people and confirmed with them, and some of them said, we should return. And he decided to go back. So the trustworthy Ummah came and said, O leader of the believers, is that by way of avoiding Allah's preordainment? Thereupon Umar said, we are fleeing from Allah's preordainment to Allah's preordainment. We are going from one qadr to another qadr. All of it is min qadr. Reported by Bukhari and Muslim. And what we benefit from here is that you can't escape the qadr of Allah. You choose not to do an action from the qadr of Allah. You choose to do it from the qadr of Allah. In reality, إِنَّ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدْرٍ. Everything Allah is created in qadr. But people, they tend to misunderstand this and not understand the reality. Where they think that certain things that you think Allah has decreed, so they say, well, I'll do this, I'll do that. Allah has decreed, and we don't know. It's a secret of Allah. But what is our responsibility? To do that which Allah has legislated for us. So reality, this is a point of trying to flee the decree or trying to escape is based on an argument or based on the idea that we may know what Allah decreed. We don't know. And also, in our responsibility is not to be doing this. We should not be investigating or trying to seek to avoid anything. What we're supposed to do is do good and avoid evil, because Allah will hold us to account. And so the Shaykh then he says that here's then a parable that Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu gives. He says, if you have a camel and it descends a valley with two paths, one profusely rich in herbage and flowers and etc., and the other is dry. If you follow the one that's rich, the path that's rich with these things, is it not by Allah's preordainment? And likewise, if you follow the dry path, he continued, if you follow the dry path and avoid the rich one, would you be considered lazy? And he answered yes. He said, then proceed. So even though the individual is acting, he does so according to Allah. Whatever we do. And we do as human beings, we always choose the best path to get somewhere. We choose the easiest way to do something. And no one is going to believe they're being compelled. At the same time, people, they see in their life every day certain instances that clearly show that everything is not in our hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created everything وَقَدَّرُهُ تَقْدِيرًا, and He has decreed with decree. So this is a benefit in introducing the idea that there are people who are, which chapter is related to, مَا جَاءَ فِي مُنْكِرِ الْقَدَرِ. There are people out there who deny qadr. And the Shaykh said the benefit of qadr are many. For example, perfecting your tawheed al-rububiyyah. It also necessitates true tawakkul and dependence on Allah. Because if you know that everything is according to Allah's pre-decree and preordainment, you will truly depend on Allah. And this actually avoids the calamity that people fall into when they put a lot of emphasis on themselves. They have a strong self-confidence. And sometimes it doesn't aid them in anything but arrogance or failure. And we know this. When you feel so confident, I have it, I can do it, I don't need any help, no problem, for sure. All of these languages that we know, but then we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that we have nothing. So in reality, believers should be, strong to tawakkul on Allah. Take the asbab and be strong in your belief and dependence upon Allah. For depending on yourself is weakness. And the Prophet ﷺ used to supplicate that Allah doesn't leave him to his own self for a blink of an eye. So very important that we remind ourselves of this. Thirdly, it brings tranquility to the heart. If you know that whatever reaches you could not have missed you, and whatever misses you could not have reached you, you'll be calm, and whatever reaches you after following the beneficial means. So you're not going to feel worried. And this is actually a safety net we need today. When you did your best, you failed. You got fired, but didn't do anything. That's maybe necessitate that, but qadr Allah, it happened. Or somebody falls the calamity. He feels good. He feels calm and tranquil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me hasanat for it. Allah is going to elevate my status for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. Whatever He does, He knows better. And that's why we do dua or we do salat or istikhara. We're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to choose for us that which is better. That which is more better. And we see here a benefit that without this belief in qadr, lack of tranquility, you're left to your own devices, which is never going to be a success. Truly, you're not going to be successful. Despite you may be successful in certain instances, reality you won't be. And we find today in these environments, or people who have lack of faith or anything to believe on, how unsuccessful they really are. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. True success belongs with Allah. And other benefits, we mentioned them before, for example, protecting you from suicide and self-harm and salam. All this is from the belief in qadr. Now we get into the chapter, the actual chapter. It comes in the hadith of Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, where he mentions, perhaps there's a hadith before it. No, this is the hadith of Umar. No. وَالَّذِي نَفْسَ Ibn Umar بِيَدِهِ. But the one in whose hand is the soul of Ibn Umar. لو كان لأحدهم مثل أحد ذهب ثم أنفقه في سبيل الله ما قبله الله منه حتى يؤمن بالقدر. He said that if any one of them, means the Qadarites, who he was addressing at this moment, when he was asked about them, he said if any one of them was to give the like of Mount Uhud in gold, and then he gives it in charity, in Allah's sake, for Allah's sake, Allah will not accept it from him until he believes in Qadr. And then he gave us evidence the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, الإيمان أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. أخرجه مسلم وراه مسلم. That Iman is that you believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers in the last day, and that you believe in Qadr, the good of it and the evil of it. So here Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen explains, rahimahullah, that this hadith was actually reported from Ibn Umar, from his father Umar. It's the hadith of Jibreel. And the context of the hadith of Jibreel is found in Muslim, in that two of the tabi'een, they came for Hajj or Umrah to ask any of the Sahaba in relation to the Qadariyah. For the Qadariyah, when they emerged, they created this doubt and this fitna in relation to Allah's decree. So these two tabi'een, they said, we're going to go for Hajj or Umrah and meet one of the Sahaba, one of the companions of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and ask them about this issue. Many fawaid from the hadith, amongst those benefits, is that the Salaf would go and they travel to ask the people of knowledge, and when there's issues of fitna and issues of confusion. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ ذِكْرٍ كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. They will go and return back to the kibar, in this case the Sahaba. And they went for Hajj Umrah, means that this is amongst the benefits of Hajj Umrah, besides the ibadah itself, is that liqa ahl ilm, to meet the people of knowledge and to sit with them and benefit from them. And so Ibn Umar, he heard what they told him about, to the people they came from Basra, saying this and this and this. And then he told them the hadith of Umar in refutation of these people. And so we benefit from here that if someone doesn't believe in Qadr, in reality, it's a nullification of his Iman and his Islam. For the 6 pillars of of Iman, must be believed in entirely. The same way if someone doesn't believe in one of the 5 pillars, we can't call them a Muslim. If they don't believe in it. If we differ over, for example, someone gives zakat who didn't give zakat, what's the state of their Islam, is different than if someone doesn't believe in the obligation of zakat. So very important here, the Qadr should not be denied. And it's actually this disbelief of someone to deny Qadr in itself. And this is important, for the chapter is warning against denying Qadr. The Shaykh then, rahimahullah, Shaykh Muhammad, he goes into detail explaining all 6 pillars and what you need to believe in them, what you need to know of them. And this in reality he explained in his other work called Sharh Usul Al-Iman. It's a small booklet called Sharh Usul Al-Iman, a very highly recommended book to beginners they read from. It's translated by Dr. Salih rahimahullah. And I recommend the brothers they read this book. In there, Shaykh, he takes all 6 pillars and he explains it with a beautiful explanation for the beginner. What you need to know about this pillar, and what examples are there, what evidences. So it's a beautiful introduction to Iman. And he does the same thing here. Belief in Allah encompasses 4 things. Belief in angels encompasses 4 things. And he explains it, and he gives examples and proofs. So here, if someone wants these details, then he returns to that book. Explanation of the foundations of Iman, Sharh Usul Al-Iman, Very, very good book. And so here the shahid of this hadith is that Ibn Umar refuted them, those who denied qadr. And there are people who deserve this. And other narrations also come describing such people in negative terms. As there comes also another hadith by Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Al-Qadariyya to majus hadhihi al-ummah. That the Qadariyya are the Zoroastrians of this ummah. If they get sick, do not visit them. If they die, do not witness their funeral. And here this hadith, Shaykh Muhammad Hizam, he says Hassan bi-shawahidihi, and other scholars also authenticated. It benefits us as well that who and how are they Qadariyya or Majus? Does it mean that they're disbelievers? And there's tafsir in that, in which group of them believe and don't believe. And if they deny Allah has knowledge of something occurring before it occurred, that's a disbelief. But if they come with these different shubuhat and stuff, they're probably an innovation at the very least. So it's very important we see here, what is it referring to as Majus here? In that the fire worshippers believe in two deities. And many of you are familiar with them. Zoroastrians, they worship the fire. Or they have fire in their temples, it's one of the things that they worship, but they believe in two deities. One of deity of good and one of evil. And these two deities, they duel or they have competition till the good overcomes the evil. So essentially, the Qadariyya who believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decrees the good, but as for evil, it's not from Allah. Mankind is deciding the evil or decreeing this. And this again is a false belief. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed and He created evil. مِن شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. So they came and say, well, evil cannot be ascribed to Allah, so that's from Allah, that's from us. So this is a problem, right? Because we also need to remember Allah created everything. Evil is something. Allahu khaliq kulli shay. So this hadith also shows censorship for such a group. That Rasulullah actually spoke about them. For some people, they have a problem when these names are mentioned. They say, how can there be such groups? This is causing sectarianism. Rasulullah warning against such groups because they deviated. To show us that there are people upon guidance, those are misguided. It's not to say that this hadith is there just for just mere mention. It's to show us that there's a misguided group. And this is from the responsibility of Rasulullah to show us the path of Jannah and warn us from the path and protect us from the path of Jannah. But here the people today, when they hear these groups or they hear such things, they say this is division, dividing the ummah. It's clarifying the truth. So that's that we don't become like such people who Rasulullah warned against and also told us of their emergence. The scholars also discuss, and we'll mention that probably later a little bit about the history of the group. That's the first hadith in this chapter in relation to such a group. So it's important for us to know that Ibn Umar, when he heard about them and what they believe, he immediately presented the hadith of Rasulullah refutation of them. And this hadith, many of us, alhamdulillah, have memorized, hadith Jibreel. The second hadith in the chapter is hadith Ubadah ibn Samit, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And this hadith, it comes in different sources. Here is sources of Abu Dawood, and it's authentic hadith. That Ubadah ibn Samit radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said to his son, my son, you will not have the taste of Iman until you know it certainly that whatever afflicts you, you could not have missed, or could not have missed you, and that whatever missed you will not have reached you. I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, the first of Allah created was the pen. He said to it, write. It asked, my Lord, what will I write? He said, write the preordainments of everything until the hour is established. My son, I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, whoever dies upon other than this is not from me. فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Another version, Muslim Ahmed says, the first thing Allah created was the pen. He said to her, write, and in that very hour all that will happen till the day of resurrection went on. Another version by Ibn Wahhaab, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, so whoever does not believe in the preordainments, the good of it and the evil of it, Allah will burn him in the fire. So all this showing that the people who deny qadr, all that they're being warned from is just either disbelief, punishment, and warning. Showing us it's not allowed for a believer to disbelieve in the preordainment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is important because this is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to in relation to Quraysh, who denied. Amongst them those who denied qadr, and Allah then revealed the ayah, إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدْرٍ. That very we have created everything by qadr. Means that in the people of the past there were certain groups who didn't believe in the preordainment of Allah. So it's not possible that for someone to be within the fold of Islam and then propagate the same belief saying that it's not from Islam, that there is no pre-decree, when there are so many evidences. So we benefit from these ahadith, which are authentic, is that such a person, it says, Allah will burn him in the fire. Another hadith says, whoever dies upon other than this is not from me. So again, depending on the level and the misguidance of that person, either between misguidance, deviation, or disbelief, depending on the person's beliefs. So we don't just say it outright that the Qadariyah, all of them are disbelievers, just like this. Or there's certain groups amongst them. And later on, certain groups carried some of their doubts. But we say that this is what the one who denies Qadar, where they're standing. And so very important that we be wary of that, and we should not have doubts in relation to it. As for the first thing which Allah created was the pen, and we spoke about this before. The ulama differed on that. Is the pen the first, or is it the water, or is it to be said in the discussion about the wind? And so here Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen says, in relation to this, however, where does it? He says, does it mean that the first thing to be created of all things was the pen? The answer is no. Because if we hold that the pen is the first of all creation, then He commanded the writing when He created. And we know basically that Allah created other things, and that the beginning of Allah's creation was 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and earth. And we know that Allah, the Mighty, the Sublime, created things before this period over the time. No one knows except Allah. Owing to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not stop, has not stopped creating. So based on this, it will be said the first thing Allah created, it needs actually some explanation. And then he goes into the discussion amongst the people of knowledge, which we mentioned before, they differed. So the benefit is that some said it was, and some said no. وَكَانَ عَرَشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ Allah's throne existed, it was over water. So those things proceeded. And then they keep going forward. So this is important, just as a side benefit. And the point that he says that when Allah created the pen, He told it to write. And it writes what? The decree. So this is important, it's writing the decree. And so we benefit here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to write His decree. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Shaykh asked an interesting question. Does the pen know the unseen? Means how did the pen know what to write? He says no, but Allah the Almighty, the Sublime, He commanded it to write, and so He followed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one who commanded and willed that it does so. Not that it by itself knew this. So we benefit from these ahadith, and the Shaykh explains them again that there is no way around someone denying the belief in the Qadar. And so someone to deny the Qadar, then really in reality they are upon misguidance and doubt, and they need to be clarified to them. Another hadith in the chapter is a hadith in the Musnad and also the Sunan from Ubay ibn Ka'ab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Reported from Ibn Daylami that he said, I went to Ubay ibn Ka'ab and I said, I feel uneasy about the preordainment. So give me a narration, perhaps Allah will take it away from my mind. So he said, if you go out, if you give out in charity the like of Uhud in gold, Allah will not accept it from you unless you believe in the preordainment. And you should know that certainly whatever afflicts you was not to miss you, and whatever misses you was not to reach you. If you die upon other than this, you will be among the dwellers of the hellfire. Thereupon I approached Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Hudayf bin Yaman, Zayd bin Thabit, and each of them narrated the same thing from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hadith is Hasan. What we benefit from this is that the Sahaba unified in their belief in relation to Qadar. No different. And each of them showing that it's a must that you believe in it. So again, the benefit we take from for Iman is you have to believe in all of them. There is no differentiation. You can't believe one element or one article of faith and not the other. And the people who doubted in the Qadar, really they came with philosophy and logic, and they tried to proceed those things over the texts, and they end up with nothing. What is the origin of such thinking? And the scholars, they mentioned that it came from a long time ago. I'll mention some of those benefits here very quickly. Where did these beliefs of Qadar come from? From the earlier groups of Qadariyah. Who originated these beliefs? Because certain people came with them after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba believed and had their deen completed. They came after. So amongst those who earlier spoke about refuting these doubts, it's important to know in the beginning, when they first came, they were refuted. Amongst the earliest to refute such doubts was Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and before him Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These ahadith. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually spoke about certain groups coming, denying Qadar, and people denying it. And certain hadith says such people will not enter paradise. And then Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in his time period, he warned against the group. those who don't believe Allah, He misguides people. The same way Allah guides. But when the hadith of Muslim we mentioned earlier, hadith Ibn Umar, it's ascribed that Ma'bad al-Juhani, he began this call to da'wah or da'wah to al-Qadariyah. So many of the scholars, they mentioned that in Basra, Ma'bad al-Juhani, he began this call of disbelief of Qadariyah and calling people to it, to which they went to Ibn Umar or the Sahaba to ask about it. So amongst those people, the scholars, they mention this because in the hadith they mentioned that. Because كان أول من قال في القدر بالبصرة معبد الجهني. This is a hadith in Muslim, how it begins. The first to speak about the issue of Qadr in Basra was Ma'bad al-Juhani. So it's not that to say he was the only one at the time period. But the scholars also said there was other people who actually spoke about it the first. Some in the Salaf they mentioned, like Imam al-Awza'i and others, that the first to speak about it was a man from Iraq named Sawsan. Or they say here, say Sawiyya. And they say this person was a Christian, then became Muslim, then went back to Christianity. And he actually originated this doubt. So if you combine between both, some say that in reality maybe Ma'bad al-Juhani took these ideas from him. Because it's not from Islam, we know that much. It's not from Islam, it has to come from some outside doubt. So there's no contradiction, but we see that it appeared during the time of some of the companions, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and they were refuted instantaneously, immediately. Such a doubt was dispelled. But, as usual, these kind of doubts, they linger around when they're advocated and propagated by people. They try to be added to and try to be mesmerize the people, especially to the people who are laity or lay folk. And it continues then how this belief spread. So details we benefit from it, that the beliefs of Qadariyah and the group of the Qadariyah or Jahmiyah or Jabariyah, as a group, you might not find them as a group labels holding that name in its entirety, but their ideas do not exist. Such that there are people told today who believe in these beliefs. And there are certain modern sects also who have adopted those beliefs. They don't call it Qadariyah, they don't call it this, but they have the same belief. Very important that we understand that these beliefs have not died away. So in benefit we take that to disbelieve in Qadr is disbelief. But a person who may have doubts in this and who has confusion, our job is to clarify. So it's very important that we don't come to the conclusion that someone doesn't understand Qadr, we say this is disbelief. You're becoming a disbeliever, but not because you're doubting or have confusion. People that have doubts, they need to be clarified. To be clarified to the people. And we also tell Shaykh takes a benefit here. He says, is, on page 448, is belief in preordainment connected to Tawheed al-Rububiyyah or Uluhiyyah or Asma wa Sifat? And he says its connection to Rububiyyah is more than its connection to Uluhiyyah and Asma wa Sifat. Then it's connected to Asma wa Sifat more than Uluhiyyah. And its connection to Uluhiyyah is also there and clear. Because with respect to Allah, it's called Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. And related to the servants, it's referred to as Tawheed al-Ibadah. And the Ibadah is the servant's actions and it's connected to his preordainment. Therefore, belief in preordainments has basic connection to all forms of Tawheed. This is the conclusion. It's connected to Tawheed. That's why it's in this chapter. And we also know that a believer, he needs to remember that it's a secret of Allah. So if there are doubts that arise, that someone should take it to those more knowledgeable to answer it for him. Let not those doubts consume him. Now, some people, they study and they sit with people who are full of doubts, people who are studying philosophy and rhetoric, and they put doubts in them and then they don't know how to escape these doubts. So it's very important that you go and you ask. You don't just let them consume your doubts, because at the end of the day, where are you falling into? Where are you heading when someone has doubts regarding this belief? It's very important. Some people, they have doubts, they try to say that I don't understand. Certain things we need to understand. This is a secret of Allah. It's not for us to try to investigate the details of the Qadr. Rather, believe in it the right way and take the proper means. مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلِنَفْسِهِ. We do good for your own benefit. وَمَنْ أَسَاءَ فَعَلَيْهَا. This is what you should remember. If we do evil, it's against you. This is our responsibility. Our responsibility is to do good deeds to from the evil, not for us to try to use our remaining efforts or remaining part of our life to discern the Qadr Allah and what Allah decreed, didn't decree. But you see, people today also need to realize that the universe and the creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed that which He's willed with ilm. with knowledge and hikmah. And we also need to remember the bounties and benefits of this belief. For now, when you turn the news or you look in society, you see confusion, warfare, calamity. Without qadr, how will you understand those affairs? You have nothing to understand them with. In fact, you may even turn away from them. Say, I don't want to see this. In reality, believer has qadr, he says, this is clear. The Kitab Sunnah, I understand this. In هذه أمة مرحومة. How come Islam is being in such calamity? Rasul spoke to us about that in our community there will be zalazil, there will be haraj, there will be fitan. Not very far-fetched. I have something to stand on. I feel comfortable now, not with what's happening, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ala kulli shayin qadir. My yaqeen doesn't change, my certainty doesn't change. Not to say that you see the calamity, you feel rejoiced in it. No, you feel sorry. But you understand it, where it's coming from. Where someone doesn't have qadr, what can he do? How can he understand? How can he understand these affairs? Haphazard. It happens by chance. Sadafiyya, it just happened. How can it just happen? And how come many things in life don't happen like this? But more importantly, we see that today's time, this is very important. For a lot of believers and Muslims today, their iman is being tested. The iman is being tested, the strength of their iman for the calamities they're going through. So what they need to do is increase in the knowledge of qadr and qada, and then become more firm and more certain that the affairs that are happening are by Allah's decree. And even if we don't see in it the wisdom, for no doubt there is wisdom. It's very important. For us today, we need to remove ourselves from being capable of knowing everything. But at the same time, also not losing heart. And this is why this chapter is so important and so refreshing. Is because it's so important today to remind ourselves of it. Because sometimes we are led to believe that whatever we see and whatever we know and whatever we can physically interact with, that's all there is. Forgetting that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a religion full of knowledge and wisdom. And this is a summary of what Shaykh mentions here, for he mentions quite a bit, but a lot of the discussion is further detailed for someone who wishes to know more. And we said before, someone who studies a subject step by step, he should not plunge himself into it, the depths of it. So we'd encourage someone who wishes to know more about qadr and qada in an elementary level, he reads that book about Shaykh Ibn al-Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, Sharh Usul al-Iman. And there he talks about all the arkan al-Iman, then you go to that chapter specifically, he gives you nice, simple ways to understand. So someone doesn't become overwhelmed, and slowly he moves to more details if he's interested. Inshallah, if anyone has any questions or points they want to mention, they can do so.
So in regards to the different types of qadr, like how you said there's like sanawiyya, and there's ones that happen like daily, yearly. What about some people, they say that your dua changes qadr as well. So what's the ruling on like a statement like that?
So we spoke about that before in terms of what does it mean that your dua can change qadr. And we said that dua is from qadr. So by supplicating to Allah and taking the means, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you that which you wish and desire, all from the qadr. So the angle, some said that in reality nothing really changes with the knowledge of Allah. But we're taking the means that we can increase our chances of that which we're hoping to attain. So in reality, this is what is intended by it, not to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't know what someone will do or will not occur. So all of it is from qadr. So what we should do always as a believer, take the things that are the right way. Take the means to get you that which you wish. So now we learn that dua helps our livelihood, our religion. You make dua. And that's from the qadr of Allah that gives you tawfiq to do it as well. For some people, they don't do dua, and then they don't obtain that which they want. The same way if someone was sick, and he doesn't take the medicine, he says, qadr Allah, I'm going to get sick. No, you take the means. And it's so important because we see people don't do this. In the dunya, they don't think this way. They do everything that's needed. And they don't second guess that for a second. They know, take the medicine, when you're sick, you feel better. And they understand this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has all this by His decree. Even then when you take the medicine, you know it may not work, but you have hope in it. So here, take dua, all from qadr, and you have sincerity, khalas, Allah will aid you. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never fail someone who makes dua sincerely. He'll reward you now or later. So this is what's intended by it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already decreed that which occurs, but it also a means for us. So we take it and we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will aid us by this, by His will.
My question is regarding a hadith that has to do with the qadr of Allah. So I don't remember the exact hadith, but the part I remember is إنما يعمل أحدكم عمل أهل الجنة, and then until it's like a small distance between him and Jannah, and then the Qadr overtakes him or something, and he does a bad deed, and
Mhm.
he'll go to hell.
Mhm.
So, like, so how does it work then? Like, why would someone want to? I don't know how to answer. Like, why would someone keep doing something good or something bad, like regardless what they do, if in the end he's still gonna, like, his destination is the same?
This hadith Ibn Mas'ud, many people they misunderstand in terms of what the hadith is intending. So if you look into the explanation, it's very clear. Hafiz ibn Rajab in Jami' Ulum al-Hikam explains it beautifully. There's a riwayah of the hadith that says that someone will keep doing the action of people Jannah فيما يبدو للناس, that which is clear to the people and apparent to the people. So we apparently see this person doing salah and zakat, but hiddenly he's not. His iman or his belief or his actions secretly are against that. It means he has something with him secretly, internally, that's corrupting him. So due to this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He changes from the final outcome He's intended. This is what's intended by it. He doesn't intend that someone does good and all of a sudden he falls off to misguidance. Of course, this is by the will of Allah too, that someone can, for most of his life, be guided, and then himself does certain actions and statements that ruin it. But it doesn't mean that someone does all that which is Allah obligated upon him, then all of a sudden he goes to Jannah. This is not what's intended by the hadith. And so some people, when they read the hadith, they misunderstand and say, then what's the benefit of good deeds? If at the end of your life you can turn either way. What's intended by, what's apparent to the people. So here Ibn Rajab, he mentioned this part of the hadith of this riwayah explains then that the person in reality is doing the good deeds, but he is also having something in his heart of sickness and sin and transgression, which then overcomes him. And then this is again because we said فَلَمَّا زَاغُوا أَزَاغَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُم. When he deviated, Allah deviated their hearts. So you benefit from this as somebody, he might do apparently good actions, but he's secretly doing sin. So the true believer then has to make unified his outer and inner. In this case, that person will tread the path to success. Right? So it's not to discourage anybody or to say to people that good deeds are futile. Rasulullah said to work, do the good deeds. When he was asked, should we leave off good deeds? He said, no, do the good deeds. Everyone finds that which is created for. So you benefit from this hadith. There's no contradiction in this. Wallahu a'lam. If you go back to the Shaykh Ibn Rajab, mashallah, he does a good job in there. Or any of the contemporary scholars, when they explain the hadith, they clarify this point. It all becomes clear then what's intended. Now,
is it correct to take the verse as a proof that we're not compelled to do that which we're doing, otherwise it would have been unjust for hisab to take place? Because then that's also the point where people, they overstretch the mark and they fall into the other extreme where they say that therefore we are completely and entirely in control of our actions. You see what I'm saying?
So the idea behind this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us accountability and responsibility and gave us will. So due to that there is hisab, there is jaza. Had there not been a will, there would not be jaza and hisab. So those who say the Jabariyah that we're compelled to do everything, then why is there Yawm al-Qiyamah hasanat and sayyat? So the proof is that there hasanat and sayyat prove that we have a will. So the idea behind that is means Allah will not oppress anyone, but when Allah punishes someone, it's not oppression. It's very important. Some people interpret punishment as oppression. He punishes people adlan, out of justice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns us. He's the creator of heavens and earth. He owns everything. He punishes the creation, does what He wills with them. He does with right and justice. And again, in accordance to that person, what he has done. So we know in the Sharia, if someone does certain deeds or bad, he will be threatened with certain punishment. If someone did bad and is punished, someone cannot call that oppression. But then it would imply this entitlement. I didn't deserve to be punished. So very important that people they don't misunderstand the fact that we have that free will and ability, that's accountability. Allah will ask us. That's what the mas'uliyah, the amana is about. But Allah, since He doesn't oppress His servant, doesn't mean He's not going to punish them. And the shadid iqab, just like He's Ghafur Rahim, and the punishment is justice. So the ulama al-aqeedah, they mention that when Allah He rewards His servants, He rewards them fadlan, out of His bounty. And when He punishes them for the sin they do, adlan, out of justice. So very important, because some people they interpret Allah punishes injustice. Subhanallah al-Azim. We are the ibad, Allah is the khaliq. This is not the language, and Allah already prohibited dhulm on Himself. So very important that people they don't interpret this way. Some people you see that they think this way, that they have a right over Allah, that He cannot punish them. This is so important today, how people have seen the world. With all the other movements going on in the world, this is how they think. They even apply these rules of entitlement and rights to Allah. So Allah cannot punish me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does whatever He wills. But again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in Sharia how that works. So to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes those deserving of punishment, rewards those deserving of reward. Now,
The microphone.
false phone. How does someone explain the concept of free will being ordained by Allah to someone who doesn't accept it being Allah's secret as an action or as an answer? The concept of free will being ordained by Allah is something which someone has to accept. In reality, logically, he has no choice, or she has no choice. Because if we were to assume that there's only free will, mankind is able to do that which they wish freely, then there are actions and outcomes in our life that show that we have only some limited control over ourselves. How many instances in the world things occur, even within our own lives, we have no control over. So had everything been in accordance to our control and our will, then you studying for your test the same way which you studied for the last test should have produced the result of a good mark. But you failed this one and passed the other. You have to explain that, how that happens. Or when you will to have a get-together the next day and it rained, even though the forecast said it was not going to rain. You explain to me those outcomes. And if someone were to deny it and say this is haphazard, it can't be just haphazard. There has to be a greater wisdom. Because to say it's just coincidence and haphazardly it just occurs, that is also a force, a blind action. I'd rather believe in a creator who has logical and wisdom and knowledge than to believe in a blind force that acts on the universe. So in reality, we see people they see every day that when they're in time of need, they're praying to something, they're hoping for something. Had everything been in our hands, we would not have to worry about that. And mankind already, by definition, already has certain things outside of their hands. That, for example, night and day, it's outside of our control. The elements, the weather, out of our control. Or even our very success is out of our control. We only take the means. We don't know what's going to happen. So somebody who doesn't believe in free will will say, then please harmonize between the two for us. How you have absolute free will, but at the same time there are many things outside of your control which no one has control over. And I'm not talking about just the universe, with your own life. And the opposite for the person who doesn't believe that there is free will, that everything is being compelled, then we say then, if you're being compelled to do everything, then why is it only that we see you doing bad deeds and wrong? Why do we see you going towards good? And to claim that also goes against our nature that we have ability. We have that feeling. When you decide which road to take in the GPS, no one's compelling you. Right? And if you believe that, there's something wrong with you. Right? If you believe that, if you actually are being forced, there's something wrong. Someone really believes this. Because in reality, this is to deny your logic. So we tell people who don't believe in free will to really examine their lives and tell them how much control do you have over the very basic elements of your life. Your skin color you didn't decide, your age or your date of birth you didn't decide, your ethnicity you didn't decide, and those elements you take for granted. The rest of the elements of your life, if you have full control over, then dictate success for yourself. Even Rasulullah said, I don't know the ghaib, otherwise it would increase in good. He had difficulty and challenges. But we see today, people they see in today's world is very unpredictable. This is one reason why there's a rise in anxiety, the unpredictability of the world, and people feel this way. If people had full control over their own selves, they would not have the outcomes they see every day. Students wouldn't be worried because they know if you do this outcome is guaranteed. But it's never the case. In fact, we even see sometimes glaring examples that we're in need of Allah's help. Allah's showing us the way. And also things that are also miraculous, that's showing you again Allah is in control. But people tend to see what they wish to see. We need to remove the blinders from our eyes and be objective and look at things for the right way. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one looking for guidance, and the one who's blind, فَمَنْ عَمِيَ فَعَلَيْهَا, he blinds himself or blinds herself. And certain people, they'll see things and they'll say, no, it doesn't mean anything. In reality, just look at what happened. And so those are simple examples to show that human beings, in reality, we have a will. No one to test that. We have that logical and textual proof. But at the same time, there are things outside of our control in our daily lives which only have to point to someone, and is the creator, controlling it and destining it, designing and decreeing it. At the same time, we don't deny the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't give us that decree, that will, because then we'll believe we're compelled, and no one came to here, this place, or this school, or anything by compulsion. So inshallah, hopefully that explains. And this is applying to someone's life. If he looks across the universe and the creation, it's a necessity. It's a necessity. Qadrullah and belief in Iman, it's a necessity to explain it's the greatest framework to understand the universe. So when a child dies in the calamities in different war-torn regions of the world, thanks to the belief in Qadr, we can comprehend that. Otherwise, we're left to nothing. We cannot understand that. Why a child is dying and suffering in certain places, except Allah decreed that for something He knows best and for reward in the hereafter and elevation. Otherwise, there's no way to comprehend that. And it will also destroy someone's own fulfillment and happiness. Because if that can happen to someone as innocent as a child, what about then you, who's doing the right thing? Most of us claim we're doing the right thing, so what about you then? Right? So it's very important. People have to understand that the lack of faith is actually the worst of things. It leaves you with nothing. No sympathy for those who are victimized, and no benefit from those who are trying to do good. It leaves you not caring and not indifferent and misguided. Wallahu a'lam. Inshallah, we'll end with this month now, Shaykh.
What's the borderline for plunging into the decree of Allah?
So when it comes to plunging into the decree of Allah, someone needs to have the basic knowledge of this belief. So it's not to say that someone who shuns all studies. He needs to study that which is necessary. So if someone reads the basic and beginner books of Aqeedah and Fiqh, especially Aqeedah and Tawheed, he will understand the basics. And if doubts do arise, then he goes further to research or to ask those who are knowledgeable to give him clarification. So we're not saying someone who removes himself entirely and not study it. At the same time, not someone to preoccupy all his studies in some way, somehow trying to understand Allah's decree. Because there's some people who study into philosophy and they try to bring thought exercises and all of these things to try to understand Qadr. And in reality, it's not benefiting their iman nor increasing them. So they have to be in the middle course. If someone studies Aqeedah and Tawheed to the way that is necessary, basic level, he'll have the proper belief. Alhamdulillah, some of the books already covered and taught. They covered the basic elements already. So someone he returns to them, and if he wishes to know more, the more he advances his knowledge, the more that he will learn. So it comes with knowledge. This is the key. To more knowledge, you will learn. But if just to open those books blindly, when you know yourself to be a beginner, then it's quite dangerous. Right? So we have to be in the middle. Inshallah. Subhanakallah bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.